Thanks, babe. I look like a barn, I guess. Now you got to understand the context here. Mount Gilead was this verdant and lush mountain hill that's in Israel. In season, the goats, especially the dark-haired goats, the black fur, I don't know what they got, but those dark-colored goats would go up on the mountains of Gilead, and they would graze there. And then they would come down off of Gilead and head back to pasture. And what he's describing here is the picture of her taking the pin out of her hair and her beautiful long black hair just kind of flowing down around her shoulders. She's taken off her veil, she's unpinned her hair, and he's just describing what he sees. In our context, maybe calling your wife's hair goats is not going to work. But for him, it's working. It's interesting to note here that Solomon is being stimulated visually. Fellas, this an accurate description of most of us? You too embarrassed? That's okay. Yeah, most of us, that's what works. When we see things, it's how God wired us. That's what gets the motor running, and we head out on the highway. Are you with me? Ladies, you are typically not as visually stimulated as men. You are more verbally stimulated, and by that I mean if your man affirms you verbally and esteems you in your appearance, then your sexual confidence goes up. Guys, that's why it's so important that we compliment our ladies. I'll say more about that in a second. But that's all he's doing here. As piece by piece kind of unfolds before him, he's just, with words, describing what he sees. And it's going to get them both to the point where they're ready to be together. Your hair's like a flock of goats. He goes to her mouth next. Let's go there. Verse 2. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep. Staying at the barn there. Just shorn, coming up from the washing. That means that her teeth are white, which was not a guarantee in this culture. You got some good teeth there, babe. They're as white as the sheep. He goes on, he says, each one has its twin, and not one of them is alone. What's that mean? She's got all her teeth. Which, I don't know if she'd smiled in front of him before, but again, this was not a guarantee. This was like growing up in a big NASCAR race. You just don't know. You don't know, if they're going to have their teeth until they smile, and then you're like, oh, good, you do. You got them all. Your lips are like a scarlet ribbon, she says, or he says, and she's describing the redness of her lips. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples, not like up here by her brain, but more of her cheeks and her complexion. Your temples are behind your veil, are like the halves of a pomegranate. If you cut a pomegranate open, it's like a red fruit in there. And so he's just saying your cheeks are rosy, you're ruddy, you're beautiful without Mary Kay. You're a beautiful girl. He says your neck is like the Tower of David. Apparently this chick had a giraffe neck or something like that. I mean, she had this whooping long, but for him, it was doing it for him. So hey, go for it, You got this big old, beaker neck. That's great. It's built with elegance, and on it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. She was wearing some of those fishing lure type earrings, apparently, those big dangly ones. And she's taking those off. He's just describing how beautiful they look against her extremely long neck. Here we go. Your two breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. She's taken her wedding dress now off of her shoulders. And for the first time, he's seeing his wife's body. And all I can think about, again, is the animal kingdom. But why does he bring that in? He's saying, hey, those are just beautiful and delicate. One of the pastors I listened to this week says, I think, we can understand this because if you go to a zoo, where do they put the fawns or the young deers? They're in the petting zoo part of the zoo, and that's what his inference there was. All right, anyway. Some of you ladies are wondering why your husband's always wanting to touch. It's biblical. That is a godly man. And I just gave all the guys in here a new life verse. All right. He says in verse 6, until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and the hill of incense. If you were in here last week, we talked about the mountains of Bether. And before her time, before she was ready, she dreamt of her husband frolicking on her mountains. And now he is saying, yes, I will be going to the mountains tonight. And he said, look at verse 7. This is a great verse. Underline this. If you don't get anything else in this section, underline this. He says, all beautiful you are. How much? Entirely, totally, ultimately. He says, everything about you is amazing. All beautiful you are, my darling. There is, how many flaws? There are no flaws in you. You know why he can say this? He can say this because he has not, to this point, polluted his mind with images and ideas of other women. Fellas, ladies, your spouse should be for you your ultimate. That's why it's so important. One of the two greatest things that people struggle with before marriage are fornication, which is sexual relationships outside of marriage, and then pornography, the forn and the porn. And the forn and porn, what those things do, besides just creating trust issues and stuff like that in relationships, they also warp our sense of beauty. We go to airbrushed pictures of these women and men that we've never met, and we esteem them as what attractive is. This is my ultimate. And then we take those pictures into our wedding nights or into our marriage beds, and we say, because you don't match up to this vision, this image that I have of perfection, well, then I'm not as attracted to you as I should be. That's why it's so important to keep those images out. Fellas, it's important for you to bounce your eyes when it comes to other attractive women. For this reason alone, because those women that you esteem and fantasize about now become the comparison that you have with your wife. And she should never be compared. Everybody look at me. Your spouse should never be compared to anybody, because they're your ultimate. There's no flaw in them. There shouldn't be. Couples who are quick with criticisms often do not experience a very healthy sex life. Husbands who stand in the door as their wife is dressing and point out every flaw in their body as they age can count on a pretty cool evening. Same thing for the ladies. Ladies, you can't sit there and bemoan the fact that your husband's put on a few and long for the days when he was more attractive. It is sexual kryptonite. It's just going to destroy your intimacy, because both of you are going to be more concerned about how you look and less concerned about enjoying what God has given you as a gift. Are you with me on this? So write this down in your notes. First of all, we're going to be patient and wait for the time that God has appointed for sex, but then once we're there, we're going to learn to be precious. We're going to learn to be precious and take our time, learn each other, understand what each other needs in a sexual relationship, and provide for the other person. We're going to talk about that in the next point. But fellas, just real quick, let's just go over the facts here again. Women are crock pots. Men are microwaves. Women are symphony orchestras. They're intricate in their instrumentation. Men are one-instrument punk rock bands. We're not very complex individuals, fellas. We have one channel that we are able to focus on at any given time. There's one screen in our head. And the great thing about how God has made us is that we can flip channels from whatever we're doing in our screen or in our minds to sex in about 7 seconds. That means that you could be watching the game and your wife can cross in front of the screen carrying a load of laundry, having not showered, but her sexy visage against the back screen is enough for you to think, hey, sex is fun. That would be cool right now. And in 7 seconds, you're like, I must get her. And you're up off the couch, you've forgotten the game, you're chasing your wife, and she's like, I'm putting away laundry, get away from me! But that's how we're wired. We can turn it on a dime, and we turn off that one screen, and this is the only other screen we got. And that's why wives are like, what is your problem? Don't blame us. It's how God wired us, man. Once it's in there, and I can't get it out until we either, really don't do this or do this, right? I mean, it's how we're made up. Now, consequently, guys, when we function that way, our wives usually aren't that way. And so the sexual relationship can become a frustration for her. She needs more than 7 seconds. Lots more. She needs, listen, women do sex so that they can get romance. Men do romance so that they can get sex. And you, fellas, you need to just understand that my wife is just different from me, and I need to learn to seek what she needs in a relationship. Because, write this down, the best sex on earth is the sex that both married partners enjoy.